Dr. Amanda Mitchell had learned to multitask years ago, but this was pushing it. Her tablet blinked with incoming data streams while she cheered for her daughter Katie's soccer team. The October wind carried leaves across the field as 12-year-olds chased the ball, blissfully unaware that their world might be ending. "Come on, Rockets," she shouted, eyes darting between the game and the encryption algorithms running on her device. The Kraxan transmission had burst through every communication channel 20 minutes ago, and she was close to cracking it. The alien signal pattern was elegant, too elegant. Her phone buzzed. Major James Cooper, right on schedule. "Tell me you've got something, Amanda." "Almost there." She winced as Katie took a hard tackle. "You know, the Kraxan made the same mistake the Germans did in World War I. They assumed complexity equals security. In English, Doc. They're using a quantum-based encryption that's mathematically perfect, if you follow their rules. But they never considered someone might just." Her fingers flew across the screen. "Go around them entirely." "Got it." The decoded message filled her screen. Her heart stopped. "Amanda, you there? Get me STRATC on. Now." She was already packing up her bag, waving to get Katie's attention. The Kraxan just gave Earth 6 hours to surrender. After that, they start wiping cities off the map. Christ. Cooper's voice tightened. "I'll have a car at the soccer field in 3 minutes. Amanda caught Katie's eye and gave the emergency signal they'd practiced. 3 quick waves. Katie immediately jogged to the sideline, face serious. They'd prepared for this since Amanda took the Xenotech job. Another parent could get Katie home. Humanity needed her mother more right now. The car was military-issue black, Cooper himself at the wheel. Amanda slid in, already pulling up more data. "The transmission's got layers, James. The threat is just the surface." "What else?" "Look at the carrier wave structure." She sent him a diagram. "They're not just sending a message. They're showing off. Every part of this transmission is designed to demonstrate technological superiority. Quantum encryption, tachyon-based FTL communication, energy signatures that make our strongest transmitters look like tin cans and string." Cooper took a hard turn toward Peterson Space Force Base. "Psychological warfare. More than that. This is," she paused, something clicking. "This is routine for them. The structure, the format. They've done this before. Many times. You're saying Earth isn't their first target. We're probably their 100th. Look at this." She highlighted sections of code. "These parts aren't even properly optimized. They're using the same template they've probably used for centuries. They're so confident it'll work, they didn't bother customizing it." Cooper's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "That's good news, right? Means they're arrogant. Might make mistakes." Amanda's tablet pinged with new data. "Maybe. But it also means they've never failed. Every species they've encountered has either surrendered or..." She let the thought hang. They passed through 3 security checkpoints in 2 minutes, Cooper's credentials clearing the way. As they rushed toward the base's central command bunker, Amanda's mind raced. The Kraxan's message was perfect, elegant, overwhelming. And that was their weakness. "James, I need a secure lab and direct access to the quantum computing cluster." "You have an idea." The Kraxan built their entire communication system on quantum principles. It's unbreakable, unhackable, perfect. A smile crept across her face. But they've never encountered a species that thinks like humans. They see quantum mechanics as complex mathematics. We see it as weird science that breaks its own rules. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we show them that perfection is predictable. And humans." She pulled up the soccer field security camera feed, watching Katie getting into her friend's car. "Safe. We're anything but perfect." The bunker door sealed behind them with a heavy thud. They had 5 hours and 42 minutes until the Kraxan expected Earth's surrender. Amanda was going to use every second of it, to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in matching the aliens' perfection, but in finding ways to make their perfection meaningless. Lieutenant Jessica "Mad Dog" Reynolds watched the International Space Station burn. The Kraxan had destroyed it exactly when they promised, 6 hours and 1 minute after their ultimatum. Through her F-35's canopy, the debris field glittered like cruel stars. "Remember, Mad Dogs," she broadcast to her squadron. "We're not here to win. We're here to learn." 17 fighters against an alien warship. Suicide by any normal measure. But normal had died with the ISS. Quantum signature patterns recorded and transmitting, her co-pilot, Alice, reported. Dr. Mitchell's receivers are getting everything. The Kraxan flagship hung above Earth like a cathedral of metal and malice, 30 kilometers of engineered arrogance. Their quantum shields shimmered with colors human eyes were never meant to see. Mad Dogs. Execute pattern Echo 7. Jessica rolled her fighter into a spiral attack pattern they'd practiced for weeks. Not their best maneuver, their most predictable one. The trap needed to be convincing. The Kraxan took the bait. Their point defense grid activated, filling space with energy weapons that could vaporize cities. Jessica's squadron danced through the barrage, taking readings with every near miss. Energy spike. Alice warned. They're powering up their main weapon. "Now control," Jessica broadcasted. "Launch the package." From 12 different points in low Earth orbit, nuclear missiles emerged from hidden launchers. The Kraxan's sensors caught them immediately, just as planned. Their shields shifted configuration, preparing to absorb energies that could glass continents. They never saw the real attack. Behind each nuclear missile, hidden in the thermal bloom, flew a tungsten rod no bigger than a telephone pole. No warhead, no explosives, just mass and velocity. The nukes were just cover, their radiation masking the purely kinetic weapons behind them. Impact in 5, Alice counted down. 4, 3. The Kraxan's quantum shields sang as they caught and dispersed the nuclear blasts. Their commanders probably laughed at such primitive weapons. They stopped laughing when the kinetic rods hit. No quantum field could fully stop pure momentum. Physics was physics, even for advanced aliens. The rods struck at 0.15 t, their relativistic mass turning them into cosmic hammers. They punched through shields designed to stop energy weapons, tore through armor evolved to resist plasma. "Holy shit," someone breathed over the comm. "They're not invincible." Jessica allowed herself a tight smile. Mad Dogs. Execute pattern Delta. Real attack this time. Her squadron split apart, each fighter targeting a pre-assigned weak point identified during their sensor run. The Kraxan ship's shields were fluctuating, trying to compensate for damage they'd never been designed to handle. Multiple hull breaches detected, Alice reported. Their shield matrix is destabilizing. Dr. Mitchell's predictions were correct. Their systems can't adapt to physical impacts at these velocities. The Kraxan launched fighters of their own, sleek, deadly craft that could outmaneuver anything humanity had ever built. But they made one critical mistake. They assumed superior technology meant superior tactics. Mad Dogs, go dark. Jessica killed her engines, letting momentum carry her through a cloud of debris from the ISS. Her squadron did the same. The alien fighters, relying on energy signatures to track their targets, flew right past them. "For the station," Jessica whispered, then lit her engines hot. Her squadron emerged from the debris field behind the alien fighters, guns blazing. No fancy energy weapons, just good old-fashioned depleted uranium rounds, accelerated to fantastic speeds by railguns. The alien fighters' rear shields, optimized for energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper. "Control, this is Mad Dog Leader," Jessica reported, watching the Kraxan flagship list to one side. Atmosphere venting from multiple breaches. "Please inform Dr. Mitchell that her theory was correct. Their quantum tech has a critical weakness. They never expected anyone to fight dumb." As her squadron regrouped for another attack run, Jessica thought about the ISS crew. They'd died buying time for this moment, maintaining their stations until the very end, so the Kraxen would focus on the obvious target. Alice, send the signal. A tight beam transmission shot from her fighter toward the crippled Kraxen ship. Just 3 words in perfect Kraxen script, courtesy of Dr. Mitchell's codebreaking. Lesson 1 begins. Colonel Michael Iron Mike Davidson pressed his back against the alien bulkhead, old school M4, a 1 carbine held close. The captured Kraxen vessel's corridors pulsed with emergency lighting, casting everything in a sickly purple glow. Just ahead, his Marine Force recon team waited for his signal. "Doc, you getting this?" he whispered into his comm. Crystal clear. Amanda Mitchell's voice crackled back. "Every step you take is giving us years' worth of xenotech data. But Mike, watch the left junction. Their internal scans show movement." "Roger that." He signaled Sergeant Sarah Torres, their close quarters combat specialist. She nodded, pulling out something that would have looked at home in World War I, a simple mirror on a stick. The Kraxen guards never saw it peek around the corner. Their sensor suites were calibrated for energy signatures, shield fluctuations, quantum disturbances, not reflective glass. 2 tangos, Torres whispered. Energy weapons, personal shields. But they're favoring their right sides. Looks like their shield generators have weight. Mike smiled grimly. Human soldiers learned to spot enemy patterns. Alien or not, everyone had habits. "Parker, you're up." Private First Class Joey Parker pulled out their primitive weapon, a pump-action shotgun loaded with rock salt. The Kraxen's briefing on human weapons had probably never mentioned this old hunting trick. The salt wouldn't kill them. Didn't need to. It just needed to hit those shield generators. 3-2. Mike raised his fist, then dropped it. Parker spun around the corner, fired twice. The salt spray scattered across the Kraxen shields, creating countless tiny impacts. Their shield generators, designed to handle single powerful hits, went into overdrive trying to block thousands of minimal threats. The generators overheated in seconds. Mike's team dropped the aliens before their shields finished failing. Clean shots, center mass. The Kraxen armor, designed to disperse energy weapons, offered little protection against simple lead bullets. "Command, we're Oscar Mike to the bridge." Mike keyed his neural recorder, making sure the Xenotech team got every detail. "Be advised, enemy personal shields have critical weaknesses against sustained minimal impacts. Recommend scattershot tactics for future encounters." "Acknowledged," Amanda replied. "And Mike, the Kraxen War Council is watching this. Their quantum communications array is still online. They're seeing everything." Mike checked his watch, an actual mechanical Rolex. No electronics for the aliens to track. "Good. Let's give them a show." His team moved through the ship like ghosts. Every tactic they employed came from centuries of human warfare. Sightlines checked with mirrors, corners breached with flashbangs, simple magnesium flares that overwhelmed alien optical sensors. Communication through hand signals denied the enemy any emissions to track. They reached the bridge in 12 minutes. "Jesus," Torres breathed, looking at the alien controls. "How are we supposed to operate this?" "We're not." Mike pulled out their secret weapon, a tablet containing Amanda's latest work. "Doc, you're up." The tablet interfaced with the ship's quantum systems, not trying to control them. That would be impossible. Instead, it introduced small errors into their perfect calculations. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. The bridge's main screen flickered to life. A Kraxen face appeared, all angles and metallic scales, eyes that had watched 100 worlds burn. "Impossible," it said in translated English. "Your species, your pre-singularity. Your weapons are projectile-based. Your tactics are ancient." Mike walked to the captain's chair, sat down deliberately. "You know what your mistake was. You thought technology equals advancement. But humans, We never stopped learning the old ways while developing new ones. He pulled out his combat knife, plain steel, sharp edge. The Kraxan commander's eyes fixed on it. Your species has quantum shields, Mike continued. Energy weapons, FTL drives. But you've forgotten something crucial. The basics still work. And humans? We've spent thousands of years perfecting the basics. He stabbed the knife into the arm of the alien chair. The sound echoed through quantum channels to the Kraxan War Council. Lesson 2, Mike said quietly. Never assume primitive means simple. Thomas Wright hadn't fired a gun in anger since Afghanistan, 15 years ago. Now, from the broken windows of what used to be Denver's public library, he watched Kraxan dropships descend through the autumn snow. Each flake that landed on their hulls vaporized instantly, creating a supernatural steam that made them look like demons emerging from hell. Status report, he whispered into his jury-rigged radio. Mall team ready. The voice belonged to Maria Santos, former chemistry teacher. We've rigged every fertilizer store in the complex, just like you taught us. University team set. That was Dr. James Chen, who'd traded his quantum physics research for improvised explosives. They'll never expect the science building to be the trap. Thomas checked his watch. Analog. No electronics for aliens to track. The Kraxan had learned from their space battles. They were jamming every frequency, blocking quantum communications, scanning for energy signatures. But they weren't looking for copper wire running through old sewage pipes, carrying simple Morse code. The first alien troops touched down in Civic Center Park. Their armor gleamed, personal shields humming. They moved with the confidence of conquerors who'd never known defeat. Remember, Thomas broadcasted to his network of civilians turned warriors, we're not trying to win. We're trying to teach. The Kraxan advanced in perfect formation, weapons ready. They'd adapted since their first defeats in space, prepared for primitive projectile weapons. Their shields were calibrated against bullets, explosives, even the kinetic rods that had proved so effective in orbit. They weren't prepared for what came next. Now, Thomas ordered. Every sprinkler system in downtown Denver activated simultaneously. Not water. That would have been useless. This was a mixture designed by Maria's chemistry students, saturated saline solution, laced with metallic particles. The Kraxan shields sparked and fluctuated. Like their ships, they'd never been designed to handle thousands of tiny impacts. The salt water found microscopic gaps, conducting electricity where it shouldn't, creating feedback loops in their perfect quantum fields. Second phase, Thomas commanded. The library's entire rare book collection, papers that had survived centuries, dropped from upper windows. The wind caught them, creating a blizzard of paper that mixed with the real snow. The Kraxan's optical sensors, trying to track threats, went into overdrive, attempting to analyze every moving sheet. That's when the real attack began. Construction workers who'd spent their lives building skyscrapers rappelled down buildings, dropping simple nets. Store owners who'd protected their shops through riots threw caltrops made in home forges. Teenagers on skateboards and bicycles zipped through alien formations, trailing cables at ankle height. The mighty Kraxan warriors, who'd conquered 100 worlds, found themselves slipping on icy streets, tangled in primitive nets, their perfect formations shattered by the chaos of urban warfare. They're splitting up, Maria reported, moving into buildings for cover. Thomas allowed himself a grim smile. Spring the traps. The Denver Museum of Nature and Science, evacuated days ago, exploded, not from bombs, but from natural gas lines carefully adjusted by city maintenance workers. The downtown mall collapsed, not from explosives, but from support structures quietly weakened over 3 days by construction crews. Multiple targets down, Dr. Chen reported. Their armor's tough, but they can't handle being buried under concrete. Thomas watched a Kraxan commander try to rally his troops. The alien raised his energy weapon, probably preparing to level a city block in frustration. The shot that took him down came from Mrs. Patterson, 73 years old, who'd been a competitive archer since childhood. The arrow, simple wood and steel, slipped through gaps in the alien's destabilized shield. "Command, this is Denver Group." Thomas radioed to the military headquarters hidden in Cheyenne Mountain. "Phase 1 complete. Enemy forces are scattered, shields compromised. Your turn." As if on cue, the real military forces emerged from hiding, not with advanced weapons or experimental tech, but with simple tools of urban warfare perfected over centuries of human conflict. The Kraxen, their formations broken, their sensors confused, their shields weakened, never stood a chance. Thomas caught another paper in the wind, a page from Sun Tzu's Art of War. How fitting. "Lesson 3, he muttered, chambering around in his old hunting rifle. "Never fight a species that turned their own planet into a training ground." Dr. Amanda Mitchell stared at the holographic display, watching quantum equations dance in the air of her underground lab. Behind her, Major Cooper paced, his footsteps echoing off concrete walls that shielded them from Kraxen sensors. "You're telling me," Cooper said, "that we didn't just crack their shield tech. We improved it." Amanda manipulated the display, zooming in on a particular mathematical sequence. The Kraxen approached quantum mechanics like it was sacred text. They found one way to harness it and stopped looking for others. "Humans," she smiled. "We treat physics like a suggestion." The captured Kraxen shield generator hummed on her workbench, its perfect crystalline structure now augmented with what looked like spare parts from Radio Shack. Quantum perfection meeting human improvisation. "Show me," Cooper ordered. Amanda activated the hybrid shield. Instead of the Kraxen's characteristic shimmer, this one pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. Their shields try to stop everything. Ours. She picked up a pen and tossed it through the field. It passed through cleanly. Ours choose what to block. Her tablet pinged with an incoming transmission from the Denver front. Thomas Wright's civilian resistance had just captured another Kraxen weapons cache. More tech to study, to adapt, to improve. "Doctor." One of her assistants burst into the lab, tablet extended. "You need to see this. The Kraxen, they're trying to adapt their shields to copy our modifications." "Show me." The data streamed across her screen. Kraxen shield frequencies shifting, trying to replicate the selective permeability her team had developed. But something was wrong. Their attempts were too rigid, too mathematical. "They don't get it," she breathed. "They're trying to find the perfect equation, the ideal solution. But that's not how we did it." Cooper leaned over her shoulder. "Explain." "We succeeded because we embraced imperfection." She pulled up side-by-side comparisons. "Look, their shields are mathematically perfect, 100% efficient. Ours operate at maybe 80% efficiency, but they're adaptable. They learn." The lab's main screen lit up with a priority transmission. Jessica Reynolds' Mad Dog Squadron was engaging a new wave of Kraxen ships. The alien vessels sported modified shields, supposedly improved. They lasted exactly 2 minutes against human hybrid weapons. "Send this to every R&D center," Amanda ordered, fingers flying across her console. "The Kraxen aren't just fighting our weapons. They're fighting how we think. And they're losing." Her team had already adapted captured Kraxen energy weapons, making them less powerful but more flexible. Their quantum computers, stripped of unnecessary perfection, now ran at speeds that made the aliens' original designs look sluggish. "Ma'am," another assistant called out, "Kraxen communications intercepted." They're arguing among themselves." The translated alien transmissions filled the screen. The Kraxen War Council was fracturing. Some demanded they double down on their traditional approaches. Others wanted to copy human methods exactly. None of them understood that humanity's strength wasn't in either extreme. "Send them a message," Amanda said quietly. "What do we say?" She thought of Katie's soccer games, of organized chaos on the field, of children learning to adapt, to improvise, to combine structure with creativity. "Tell them, perfection is static. Evolution is messy. Lesson 4. The lab erupted in activity as new data poured in. Kraxan ships across the solar system were trying to adjust their tactics, their technology, their entire approach to warfare. But they were trying to find the one perfect solution, the ultimate adaptation. Amanda watched the tactical displays, saw alien ships falling to weapons that combined their quantum science with human ingenuity. In their desperate attempt to match humanity's adaptability, the Kraxan had forgotten something crucial. Adaptation couldn't be perfected. It had to be lived. "Major," she said to Cooper, "get me command. It's time for the next phase." "What are you thinking?" She held up the hybrid shield generator, elegant alien crystal merged with crude human electronics. "I'm thinking we show them what happens when you give advanced technology to a species that never stopped playing with fire." Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Kraxan hegemony stared at the holographic display, watching another fleet disappear under human counterattack. The War Council chamber, normally maintained at perfect temperature, felt cold. "Impossible," General Krylak whispered, scaled fingers tightening on his command staff. They were primitives, pre-singularity primitives. The intelligence officer, Savine, stepped forward. Her metallic scales had dulled from weeks without rest, studying human history. "Honorable Council, I believe we made a fundamental error in our initial assessment." "Explain," Vexthor commanded. Savine activated the central display. Images from Earth's battles filled the air. Ancient Romans in formation, medieval knights charging, World War II tanks rolling through cities, modern special forces conducting night operations. "We assumed," she began, "that a species' military capability could be measured by their technological advancement. We were wrong. Humans didn't develop technology and then learn to fight. They learned to fight and then developed technology to fight better." She pulled up more images: human children playing war games, martial arts dojos, military academies, sports competitions. Their entire civilization is built on controlled conflict. Even their recreation simulates combat. Their sports, combat training with rules. Their games, strategic warfare with stakes removed. Their children are taught to compete, to strategize, to overcome from the moment they can walk. Vexthor leaned forward. "How many wars have they fought?" "Among themselves." Savine's voice trembled. "Over 15,000 documented conflicts. Their planet has never known true peace. What we considered a weakness, their constant internal strife, was actually a 15,000-year military training program." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Krylak smashed his fist on the table. "Then why haven't they destroyed themselves?" Savine's next images showed human peace treaties, humanitarian aid, international cooperation. "Because they learned something we never did: the value of restraint. They don't avoid war because they can't fight. They avoid it because they're too good at it." New tactical data streamed in. Human forces had just liberated another hegemony slave world. But instead of executing their opponents, they were providing medical aid to captured Kraxan soldiers. "That's what makes them truly dangerous," Savine continued. "They've seen every possible form of warfare. They know every tactic, every strategy, every way to break an enemy. And then, they chose to be better than that." The display showed Dr. Amanda Mitchell's hybrid shield technology. Human engineers hadn't just copied Kraxan quantum science. They'd reimagined it, stripped away the redundancies, made it more efficient by making it less perfect. "Their greatest weapon isn't their adaptability or their creativity," Savine concluded. "It's their experience. Every human soldier carries the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of warfare. Every human scientist approaches problems with the combined wisdom of centuries of trial and error." Vexthor watched another tactical display. Human civilians in Denver, using primitive tools and basic physics to defeat Kraxan elite forces. They weren't just fighting. They were teaching, showing his warriors exactly how much they didn't understand about combat. "And now?" he asked quietly. Savine's final image showed Earth, a blue marble hanging in space, surrounded by the wreckage of Kraxan ships. Now they're doing what they've always done: learning, adapting, taking our technology and making it their own. But they're not becoming like us. They're teaching us to be like them. A new transmission cut through the chamber, footage from a captured hegemony world. Human forces were training former slaves in resistance tactics, showing them how to fight back. Not with advanced weapons, but with knowledge earned through millennia of conflict. Lesson 5. Savine translated the transmission's attached message. True strength isn't in having power. It's in knowing when and how to use it. Vexthor closed his eyes. In all the hegemony's history of conquest, they had never encountered a species that saw war not as a means to an end, but as a teacher. A species that had mastered combat so thoroughly that they understood its true cost. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Fall back to core systems." "Sir," Krylak protested, "we still outnumber them." "Numbers," Vexthor said quietly, "mean nothing against a species that turned their entire history into a combat simulation. We're not fighting humans. We're fighting every warrior who ever lived on Earth, teaching us exactly how much we never knew about war." Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the U.S. Resilient, Earth's first hybrid warship. Through the viewport, she watched the Kraxan slave world Nexus 7 grow larger. The planet's orbital defense platforms, once symbols of oppression, now drifted powerless, defeated by human-modified quantum viruses. "Status report," she commanded. "Ground resistance is growing, Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported. "The tactics we taught them are spreading faster than the Kraxan can contain. Every liberated factory becomes a weapon production facility. Every freed worker becomes a guerrilla fighter." Rebecca smiled. The Kraxan had spent centuries perfecting their conquest protocol. They'd never considered that their greatest weakness would be their own slaves learning to think like humans. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Chen cut in. "Incoming transmission from Dr. Mitchell's team. They've finished analyzing the Kraxan Empire's structure." The holographic display lit up with a web of connections, showing supply lines, command structures, and, most importantly, weak points. The hegemony had built their empire on the assumption of absolute control. They'd never planned for synchronized rebellion. "Launch the next phase," Rebecca ordered. "Tell Thomas Wright's civilian advisors to begin Operation Domino." Across Nexus 7, freed slaves began implementing lessons learned from Earth's resistance, not with advanced weapons or stolen technology, but with the accumulated knowledge of every resistance movement in human history. Factory workers sabotaged production lines using techniques perfected in World War I. Farmers turned their knowledge of the land into tactical advantages, just as Vietnamese guerrillas had done centuries ago. "Kraxan response fleet detected," Tactical announced. 5 capital ships, Supreme Commander's insignia. "Hold position," Rebecca commanded. "Let them come to us." The Resilience hybrid systems hummed. Human intuition merged with Kraxan quantum science. Dr. Mitchell's improvements meant their shields could adapt in real time, learning from each hit just as human fighters learned from each punch. "They're hailing us," Chen reported. On screen, Supreme Commander Vexthor's image appeared, his metallic scales dulled with stress. "You're teaching them to resist," he accused. "Not just to fight, to think differently." "That's the thing about humans," Rebecca replied. "We never forgot what it's like to be the underdog. Every human knows, deep down, that freedom has to be fought for." The tactical display updated. Across the hegemony, slave worlds were erupting in coordinated rebellion, not with massive armies or advanced weapons, but with the simple, effective tactics that humans had perfected through millennia of resistance against oppression. "Your empire is built on control," Rebecca continued. "Ours was built on revolution. We remember what it means to fight against impossible odds. And now we're sharing that memory." A new alert flashed. The Kraxan home fleet was mobilizing, abandoning their slave worlds to protect their core systems, exactly as planned. "Launch the package," Rebecca ordered. From the resilience holds, thousands of small pods ejected. Not weapons, data drives. Each contained the complete history of human resistance movements, translated into every language in the hegemony. The accumulated knowledge of every slave revolt, every underground railroad, every successful revolution in Earth's history. You can't stop information, Rebecca told Vexthor. You can't stop ideas. That's lesson 6. The Kraxan commander watched helplessly as his empire began to unravel. Not from external attack, but from within. Every slave world they abandoned became a new center of resistance, using human tactics adapted to their own needs. Your choice is simple, Rebecca said. Continue fighting a war you can't win, against an enemy that grows stronger with every world you lose. Or what? Vexthor demanded. Or learn from us. Learn why humans chose peace not from weakness, but from understanding exactly what war costs. The tactical display showed more Kraxan fleets abandoning their posts, rushing back to defend their homeworld. They didn't realize they were already too late. The real war wasn't being fought with ships and weapons, but with ideas that could never be unlearned. Signal all commands, Rebecca ordered as Vexthor's image faded. Begin final approach to the Kraxan homeworld. It's time for their final lesson. The Kraxan High Council chamber fell silent as Dr. Amanda Mitchell and Thomas Wright walked in, completely unarmed. Behind them came representatives from every species the hegemony had enslaved, each one now standing tall, eyes bright with newfound strength. From the observation deck above, Jessica Reynolds and her mad dogs watched through rifle scopes, while Admiral Stone's fleet held position in high orbit. But everyone knew the real battle had already been won. I remember watching my daughter play soccer, Amanda began, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. The day you sent your ultimatum. You thought you were showing strength. Instead, you revealed everything about why you would lose. She activated a hologram, showing the original Kraxan message with its perfect quantum encryption. Next to it, she displayed a children's soccer game. You see perfection, she continued. We see children learning to adapt, to fall, to get back up. Every game teaches them something your empire never learned. How to face an opponent who might be better than you, and still find a way to win. Thomas stepped forward, his combat veteran stance making even the Kraxan warriors tense. You conquered 100 worlds because you were stronger. We liberated them because we remembered being weak. Every human carries the memory of fighting against impossible odds. It's in our stories, our games, our history. The chamber's displays lit up with scenes from the war. Denver citizens using simple tools to defeat advanced warriors. Mad Dog Squadron turning space debris into weapons. Hybrid shields that grew stronger from each attack. Your ultimatum demanded surrender or extinction. Amanda said, you never considered that you might be the ones learning surrender. Because that's what humans do. We teach, sometimes with kindness, sometimes with force, but we always make sure the lesson sticks. From the gallery, representatives of freed worlds began speaking. Each told stories of human advisors, teaching them not just to fight, but to think differently, to see weakness as a source of strength, to turn oppression into opportunity. Here's your final lesson, Thomas declared. True power isn't in having the strongest weapons or the perfect strategy. It's in knowing why you fight, and choosing when not to. Supreme Commander Vexthor rose from his throne, his once proud scales now dull. What are your terms? Amanda smiled, the same smile she'd given her daughter after tough soccer losses. First, you'll learn. Every Kraxan child will study human history, not just our wars, but our peace treaties, our revolutions and our reconciliations. You'll learn why we fight so hard to avoid fighting. Second, Thomas continued, you'll teach. Your technology, freely shared with all species. No more secrets, no more superiority. Everyone grows together. And third, Vexthor asked. Third, Amanda said softly, you'll play. Sports, games, competitions. You'll learn what every human child knows. Sometimes losing teaches more than winning. The chamber erupted in murmurs as Vex-Thor approached the humans. For a moment, the ancient warrior stood face to face with the scientist and the veteran. Perfect alien evolution meeting human adaptability. Why? He asked finally. Why not simply destroy us? After what we tried to do. Amanda thought of Katie, now helping train refugee children from liberated worlds. Because that's the greatest lesson humanity ever learned. Victory isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about making sure they never want to be your enemy again. The war is over, Thomas announced. The teaching begins. Above, Jessica Reynolds watched the Kraxan warriors lay down their weapons. On screens throughout the chamber, scenes played from across the former empire. Freed slaves and former masters beginning the long process of reconciliation, guided by human peacekeepers who knew from centuries of experience how to turn enemies into allies. Send the final message, Amanda instructed. On every screen in Kraxan space, in every language of the former empire, the same words appeared. You demanded war from a species that had mastered it. Now you've learned why we chose peace instead. Class dismissed.